La siguiente presentación contiene imágenes animadas.
Hace décadas que gritamos nada sobre nosotros sin nosotros. Y ese grito
Una mujer se expresa con vigor.
se convirtió en el lema del movimiento de personas con discapacidad.
Un conjunto de puños cerrados rodea la palabra movimiento.
Durante demasiado tiempo, otros contaron nuestras historias, distorsionaron nuestras voces
Una boca es tapada con cinta.
o nos dejaron afuera por completo. Pensaron que no podíamos y, así fuera con buenas intenciones,
Aparecen pulgares hacia abajo y hacia arriba.
nos condenaron al silencio. Es hora de cambiar eso para siempre.
Desde un televisor, una boca comienza a hablar, rodeada de varios puños cerrados.
Claro que sí tenemos voces, claro que sí podemos y las queremos usar para exigir nuestros derechos, para que el mundo entero escuche nuestras historias, para que nos reconozcan como somos.
Aparecen personas de aspecto diverso, realizando variadas actividades.
Personas de carne y hueso, con sueños y con problemas, con días buenos y con días malos, con virtudes y con defectos. Personas con mucho para contar.
Desde un micrófono surge el nombre del podcast.
Esto es Todo sobre nosotros con nosotros. Un show donde somos nosotros los que venimos a hablar.
El nosotros de hoy lo hacemos con Tom Shakespeare, sociólogo, bioeticista y escritor británico. Tom nació con acondroplasia y ha dedicado su vida a repensar la discapacidad desde múltiples dimensiones. Es profesor e investigador en la Escuela de Higiene y Medicina tropical de Londres, donde trabaja sobre autonomía, dignidad y derechos. A lo largo de su trayectoria escribió numerosos artículos académicos y libros clave para comprender la política de la discapacidad. También usa el humor como herramienta poderosa de cambio.
So, Tom, tell me the story of when Shakespeare met Borges.
So I was working for Organisation Mondiale de la Santé in Geneva, the WHO, and I knew that Borges and his father came to Geneva for a surgery. And he died in Geneva, as we well know, and so I went to his grave. And his grave is, as you know, is a big rock, and it is carved into it Old English. And so I was very moved. I took no flowers. I should have taken flowers. All I had was my library card. But my library card from Cambridge University Library said Shakespeare. So I thought, Shakespeare visiting Borges. And so I put it in the grave of Borges. And later, many years later, it was found, and I was interviewed for the first time by somebody from Argentina. So I was very happy about that.
So it was just a coincidence. I mean, this person from this lady anchor from Argentina, by coincidence, went to Borges's grave, saw your library card from...
She had somebody who sent her things that they found on the grave. Because many people, it's like the grave of a hero. Many people leave things. And she was sent this, and it attracted attention. And she wrote to me, she said, "Can I interview you?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And so we talked about me and about Borges and why I was interested in Borges and all that stuff. Yeah.
So this was Cristina Perez.
Exactly. So she was a news anchor at that time in Argentina. So she's a very glamorous television lady. And it was great. She came to London and interviewed me and wrote a piece. And I was very honored, very flattered.
Did she know you were a little person?
She knew because she must have Googled me. She must have known.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She must have known. But yeah, we had a good interview, I think. I hope. But you see, you can never trust journalists. You know, you never know. I have no boundaries. I talk and talk and talk, and then people make me what they want.
Well, this is a beautiful coincidence. I'm sure you read Borges.
Yes, I did.
This was a pilgrimage for you to go and
I'd read many of his stories and poems and all the rest of it. So it's a very, when I was first in Geneva, I had to see the grave of Borges. So that's why I went, and I should have taken flowers, but I did not.
Do you remember the poem? What is it about? It's Old English, but
It's a poem. It's called A Battle of Malden. It's about very typical English people. So the Vikings are offshore, and they have the upper hand, the English. And the English say, "Come, join us on the shore, and we fight equally." They're defeated. So it's typical English saying, "Oh no, come, oh, you've killed me." So that's the story, really. It's a story of defeat. And the great thing about Old English is so much is lost. They had many poems. For example, Beowulf, I'm very excited about Old English. Beowulf, the great poem of Old English, there's one copy survived. So we realize that these historic manuscripts, and that's why it's important that Borges was a librarian. Historic manuscripts are easily lost.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful, Tom. Now we are in Berlin for the Global Disability Summit. We're in a hotel in front of the venue where there's, can we say, thousands of people?
3,000 people.
3,000 people
Yeah.
from all over the world discussing disabilities.
Exactly.
What do you make of the meeting?
Well, 3,000 people in a small space is a lot of people. So that's the first thing I make. And being overwhelmed. I've written on disabilities, you know. Everybody has read something I've written. So they all want me to do something for them. And I say, well, can you solve my backache? And they go, no, of course not. And I go, well, I can't solve your problem. Because some of the disabled people face barriers throughout the world. In Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in Britain even, they face barriers. And lots of people here are devoting their lives and their work to try and relieve those barriers and meet the needs of disabled people. It's very difficult.
Where do you see the movement right now? You've been for many years. Have we evolved? Is it looking better?
Yeah, I think it is, because this is the third Disability Summit. I went to the first one in 2018 in London. And in those days, you know, we had Americans. They were very welcome. Now, no Americans. So I think Trump is the elephant, if you like. There's a phrase in English, the elephant in the room. So we talk about partnership, we talk about development, but we have a trade war, we have problems of financing. Where are we going to get the money? People are dying who have HIV, obviously because there's no USAID. But in the first, I was here with the Obama administration, and of course, at the 2018, there was many people from America who were very positively welcomed. Not anymore. There are very few people. And I introduced one person who is from the United States. I said, have you met my friend from the United States? And she flinched. She did not want to be identified with them. So
that's sad.
It's very sad. And many people will die as a consequence. So it's a really difficult time. You asked me, though, has the disability movement progressed? I think it has. I think that since we had the convention, 2006, we have slowly, steadily improved our impact. So, for example, 3,000 people, that's a lot of people. This is really impressive. I must say there's only, I mean, you probably visited it, only one accessible toilet indoors. Yeah? You've been in that queue, I've been in that queue. So it's not perfect, but it's very difficult to meet all these needs.
It's good to have the meeting, to know that we have those numbers.
Yes.
But I would say that the realities are just way too different.
Yeah.
Like the struggles of people with disabilities in Britain, I would say are highly more sophisticated than the needs of people with disabilities, let's say in Latin America or
Absolutely.
We
have a National Health Service. So if in my new wheelchair, from the National Health Service. My medication, from the National Health Service. I pay very little or nothing for all of these things. They are provided by the state. So we have pooled the risk, as it were, to the individual of disability, and we all pay. The state pays. But in Latin America, I think, no.
In some countries, they do.
Yeah.
And if it, of course, depends on what type of insurance you have.
So health insurance is really important.
Yeah. So I have a good health insurance. I'm lucky in that way. And I can also get my wheelchairs and,
But I think millions of people in Latin America do not have that.
Yeah,
millions
that's
of
very
people
true.
in Brazil, in Colombia, in Argentina, Chile. I've been to Chile. Loads of people are poor.
That's very true. But poor people still have the public.
Bolsa Familia in Brazil.
Exactly. In Sisbén is called in Colombia. and it will take longer.
Yeah.
And you won't get the best chair.
Yeah.
But
you
get something.
I work in Africa mainly. I'm afraid I don't know Spanish. I do know French. And therefore, I am at a disadvantage. You do the work in Latin America because it needs to be done. But we need to have inclusion. We need to have barrier removal. So, for example, in 2011, we launched the World Report on Disability. This is WHO, World Bank, and we did it with a series of films. And we had a film from Sucre in Bolivia. We had a lady, and her group built accessible curb cuts, curb ramps for people who use wheelchairs. That was revolutionary in 2011. Nobody else was doing that. Now, I think, if I went to Sucre now, I hope, I'd have a much better time.
I think that the biggest difference in places like London or the US or in Europe or even in Asia is mostly infrastructure.
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest gap that the developing world has.
So,
like
for example,
public transportation.
Yeah, exactly. But Curitiba in Brazil, fantastic bus rapid transport system.
Curitiba.
So it can be done. It can be done in Sao Paulo. It's being done.
Yeah, there are places like Curitiba, like Uberlandia, like small cities in Brazil
have
it completely figured out.
Yeah.
But places like Mexico or Bogota or Lima,
Yeah.
where you have millions and millions of people, the public transportation is very difficult to be accessible. We're getting there, but the reality is very difficult.
But the same in Africa. How can you fit into on a bike? So if you in Kampala, people travel around on bikes. They're called boda boda, and you get a bike to go to somewhere else. Disabled people can't do that. Or there's a Toyota minivan that takes people to work. Where are you going to go if you're in a wheelchair? You're not going to go in that. You can't afford to go to work. So people are excluded from work, from school, from public life.
Very true. I wonder what's the solution there? If people travel in bikes, maybe the solution is, have you seen, of course, those like motor things that you can get on your...
Well, the solution is buses and ramps, and public transport. So I think the solution for disabled people is actually the solution for everybody. If we had proper public transport in places like Uganda or South Africa or Zambia or whatever, we would have a different situation. And that's why disability is so much to do with the context. You're quite right. The infrastructure. So we could point to Delhi. We could point to Beijing. The metro, the accessibility of the metro is amazing. Moscow, London.
Beijing.
London. Yeah, Beijing is more accessible. And that transforms life. So for me, in London, I can get a bus to work. So I live where I live because there's a bus. It takes me towards work. And so that transforms the possibility.
So what would be the struggles in the developed world where you already have figured out stuff like public transportation, like health and...
Well, we have health available, but we need to influence the training of health professionals, doctors, nurses, rehabilitation people, so that disabled people are not seen as failures, are not seen as people without a voice, but are listened to. And the solutions... So when I was paralyzed in 2008. So I had two occupational therapists, One of them said, I am for you. I will help you empower yourself, but you must do it, I will help you. Fantastic, really good. And the other said, I won't let you do that. So I'm saying, you're not living with me. How can you stop me doing that? Having a transfer like that? Rather, I know what you're trying to say. You're saying it is unsafe to do that. In that case, help me be safe.
Okay, so it's mostly cultural barriers, attitudinal barriers.
Yeah, because we have
you
finances
figured out
sorted, we have hospitals sorted. It's attitudinal, it's the training of doctors. But in many places, there is no doctor. There is no health worker.
Well, but it seems easier, no? In 2025, if you have all of those things sorted, all you need to do is what, like campaigns to achieve those cultural shifts?
But cultural shifts, you're talking as if cultural shifts are easy. They're very difficult, because we have a prevailing idea that if you're in a wheelchair, or you speak differently, or you're otherwise disabled, you are not an equal. So I remember when I was in the medical school, I was training potential doctors, and I wanted them to meet other people with disability. So week by week, they met people with speech problems, people who were deaf and used sign language, people who had intellectual disability. And I remember overhearing one medical student talking to a guy who had just spoken, and he had severe mental health issues. He had personality disorder, and he had spoken. I was thinking, oh my goodness, these students are quite young. Oh, this is quite heavy. She came up to him afterwards. I overheard her talk to him, and she said, I used to think you were alien. Now I realize you're a person just like me.
Oh my God.
That is
terrible.
Yeah, but that is how people think. And that's a transformation we need.
So how do you tackle it? Education, ministry, services?
I think service, I am an academic. That is my background. So I want to make sure that the training is not just training in things like, I don't know, bowels and bladder and limbs and wheelchairs, but it's also training in respect. Training in you are just the same, even though you may look different.
Well, my theory of change is you need like the grassroots activism, then you need the public policy, then you need the cultural, the popular culture, you know, the TV, the arts, sports,
music, sports,
how much did the London 2012 Paralympic Games, for example, move the needle?
Yeah, it moves the needle, Paralympic Games, because suddenly we see, they're public figures, they're admirable. But it only really appeals to disabled people who can be swimmers or racers or whatever. What about all the other disabled people who can never be that, who can never compete, will never be Olympians, Paralympians? They are also disabled people, and they also worthy of respect.
True. But the games...
It's transformational.
Yeah.
Suddenly we think disabled people can be sexy, disabled people can be strong, disabled people can be personalities. It's great.
That's great. You mentioned the 2011 report on disabilities. What was this? The World Bank report, right?
It's the World Bank and WHO. It's the first world report on disability. And it said that we must remove barriers. It was very important because it said disabled people are at least 15% of the population. So many people, many countries in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, throughout the world, think maybe 2 or 3%. No, 15%.
15. You co-authored that with a bunch of...
Alana Oster and Sasha Pazrach and lots of other people contributed.
Dan Mont contributed,
So we were trying. So what was quite interesting about that report? So there's a chapter on data, chapter on health, chapter on rehabilitation, chapter on enabling environments, chapter on education, chapter on employment. I think there's also a chapter on assistance and support. Very boring, but what is missing? What is missing is what has changed since 2011, and that is social protection. So that is huge. You mentioned that some Latin American countries play in health insurance and other ways of supporting people, but this is revolutionary change. That was not in 2011, now it's very important.
So do we need a new report?
Yeah. I think we do. So I was on the board for the Global Disability Inclusion Report, which is launched here, which will also be launched in Geneva, in New York at the Conference of State Parties to the Convention. COSP. I think that report is a very good interim report. It talks about global warming. It talks about migration. It talks about cities, all of which are new, developing challenges for disabled people.
How about the data? Do you think in 2011, you guys came up with that very important figure, the 15%? Do you think now we have better ways to measure or we have better data.
But
are you still happy with the 15%?
I am happy because how long is a piece of string, we say in English? How long is a piece of string? Disability is very variable. And 15% is fine. There's a lot of people. That's every family has somebody who's disabled. I did the math because WHO said, no, not every family. I did the math. Yes, every family. If you think of the number of families and 15% of the number of people, every family is affected by disability.
Okay.
Therefore, disability is part of life. Therefore, the hospitals, the schools, the colleges must be accessible. They must be able to include. Otherwise, we're relegated to the margins.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that like the big thing right now is social protection.
Yes.
This is what the Disability Global
Social
Summit
protection, but
should
also
be.
change. The fact that we're living in a very changing world. I wake up this morning, I check my phone, and it says, we're in a trade war. We're not in a trade war the day before, we are now. And so that is a changing world. And that is the nature of the world we're in. 2011, that report was valid for a number of years, but now everything changes. There's a war, 2 wars, 3 wars, big wars. There's a cut to global aid. There's a cut. The USAID is no more. People are dying. Yeah, big changes.
Big changes. So how do we tackle this challenge of social protection? The trend seems to be to include disabilities in the gender movement care systems.
Well, we need to remember that lots of people who are non-disabled, maybe their parents, maybe their children, older people, are affected by disability. That is the first thing. But the second thing, if people with disability are dependent, are care burdens, if you like, then the answer is to empower disabled people. We are the issue. We should be empowered. Then women will not have to be carers.
Exactly, but there's like a debate there. If we should have like our own social protection systems as opposed to jumping in the bus of the care systems for women.
Yeah.
What do you think on that?
One of my students, who's now head of the UN Fund for Disability, she did an analysis. So
Mina?
Ola Abu Al-Ghib. So she did an analysis of before in Palestine there was a specific we will support disabled people, and it moved to a more general scheme for everybody. Disabled people are at risk of losing health. So we need to make sure that we remember disability. I think universal is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But we need to remember disability within that. There's one of the criteria, one of the justifications for supporting people. And if we can empower disabled people, because I said yesterday, I talked to the health panel, and one of the big figures from 2011 report, which I've never forgotten, is from the World Bank. And it said that disabled people have a 50% higher chance of catastrophic health expenditure. And catastrophic health expenditure, as we know, is health expenditure which pushes you into poverty. And that is a real problem for both disabled people, but also families of disabled people.
Okay. And what about that other debate of having all disabilities do the same advocacy, or doing advocacies per disabilities? Do you think there's a good case to be made to like segregate within the system, within the movement?
I think we need to hear the different voices, and we need to realize that some people like you and me, I think, Juan, are okay now, but not everybody. And the people who are not okay, who are not included, are people with intellectual disability and people with psychosocial disability. We need to listen to them, we need to include them, and women and girls. We need to include them. So, for example, I saw what I would call in English a manel. So a group of 4 people, all men, none disabled, talking about the new report. I said, where is the woman? Where is the disabled person? because we need to talk for ourselves and we need to listen. But particularly I was very glad that health panel yesterday had a woman with Down syndrome who was a very articulate advocate. We need to hear from people about their lives.
That seems to be improving.
Yeah.
The voices of people with intellectual disabilities. Like a decade ago, it wasn't very common, but now we see a lot of people with intellectual disabilities that are, for example, in the legislative powers of their countries.
Yeah.
And
also people with mental health issues. So my friend Alberto Vasquez from Peru, he is very concerned with the rights of people with psychosocial disabilities that we need to include, we need to understand, and we need to provide, for example, maybe antidepressant, antipsychotic medication. These are matters of life and death.
I would say that is the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
In disability, in the disability agenda, the mental health.
Yeah.
I'm glad Alberto is doing this. What is the name of his new organization?
Oh, I've forgotten because he's changed, but he's in Geneva. But he's very concerned with.
It's a great name. I just forgot it, but it was something about losing your mind or.
Yeah, I've got his card, so I can find out later. But yeah, Alberto Vasquez, very strong advocate for people psychosocial disability.
We need more Alberto.
We need more Alberto.
Albertos.
We need to listen, and we need to be respectful of. Okay, you tell me what's different. So people with mental health conditions felt excluded from this summit. I know that because they protested. They said we were not included enough. So we still haven't solved that problem.
So that's an issue of this summit.
Yes.
Like we are lacking more voices of.
Exactly. So we need to listen. And you know, I met a whole group of young people on day one, and they said, "Where are the young people?" Because with respect, many of the people who speak for disability are in their 50s or 60s. They're too old. What about people in their 20s or teens or children? That's really important too. So obviously there's always people excluded, but we need to make sure that we have diversity, that we have inclusion.
How do we train like new leaders for the movement?
I think the first thing to do is to build their confidence and say we will listen, and there are some tricks you can learn. So for example, the first time I was on radio, BBC Radio, somebody asked me a question, I tried to answer it. No, I need to bridge to say what I was going to say anyway, and make sure that my answer is heard, and I keep on repeating it if necessary until it is heard. But I was so naive about doing media interviews. Now I hope less so.
Okay. Mad Thinking is the name of the organization. I got it.
I think it's brilliant, and
I love it.
Yeah. I will Google it as soon as I get home. But my friend Diana Rose, she was about mad pride, mad involvement. It's really important, and
I'm happy that they are that they found the word for them. You know, mad.
They're happy with So my partner says loopy. She says she's getting a bit loopy. So
loopy.
In English, it's slang for a little bit. So she means psychotic, and so she needs to have more drugs.
Okay.
So, and that's a big challenge for her. And many people. So we are not comfortable, I think, as a movement. So our legs may not work, but we are included. We are able to speak.
Yeah.
But people are less able to speak, or who we don't trust because we have some superstition about people who have epilepsy or psychosis or whatever, or intellectual disability. We need to challenge that. That is the thing in our heads which we need to challenge.
What would you say is the struggle of people with psychosocial disabilities?
Well, I'm of a position where medicine is good, but the way we do medicine is bad. So I'm not somebody who's anti-psychiatry or anti-system. I want more of it. And particularly in places like Africa, maybe in Latin America, I'm not sure, where they don't have enough understanding of what is available. Okay. So good healthcare, but also good inclusion. Because healthcare is enough, but it's not the end of the story. And so, for example, we're working in Zimbabwe, and in Malawi and in Nigeria and Sierra Leone, not to give people medicine, but to say peer support, case management, and learning.
Support.
Yeah, peer support, really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because then you can see somebody like you, and you can see them surviving, and you can see them doing well, and you are inspired by them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Loads of people have come up to me at this conference. I told you, there's 3,000 people. In my bag, I have many, many cards. And why? Not because I'm brilliant, but because they've read my books or they've read something. And therefore, they think I will solve their problems. I cannot solve their problems. I can help them solve their problems. But the answer is their empowerment.
You've been many years, and you're a leader and a hero for many people in the movement. I was reading about your criticisms to the social model of disabilities, and it kind of blew my mind. Can you explain it like you would to a 5-year-old?
Okay, well,
explain like what the social model is, and then what your beef with it is.
The social model tends to say we're disabled by society, not by our bodies and minds. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we remove the barriers, we remove the way of thinking, and then it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. And I say no, it's really not going to be fine, because having a spinal cord injury or multiple sclerosis or epilepsy or Down syndrome may be a problem in itself. Yeah? So that's all.
Without the barrier.
Without the barriers. Mm-hmm. So we can remove all the barriers, but people will not be equal until they're included, until we say that all humanity has some difficulty, and we have more difficulty, but you also have difficulty. Mm-hmm. And that is the way that we will reach out to people and connect with people, I hope. But the answer is yes, we don't want to make it more difficult for people. We don't want to have more barriers for some people, but everybody is impaired. Everybody has a body and a mind, which can go wrong. So I used to go from Britain to Geneva.
Everybody.
They may break. So
But that's a problem, because if everybody has a disability or an impairment,
or is vulnerable,
then no one has a.
But not everybody is disabled. So everybody may have a vulnerability to break their ankle or to go skiing and to break their collarbone or whatever. So they're temporarily not able to participate. Maybe they need a wheelchair temporarily.
Yeah.
But we are 24/7 like this.
Yes.
This is our life, and it's a good life. So we need to say that I think it's a paradox that disability is bad, but life with disability can be very good. But it can only be good if we have good healthcare, good education, good employment possibility, then it's okay.
Okay.
But it's not good in a disaster, a crisis, an economic crisis. That's when it becomes a problem.
It's a very sophisticated...
well, thank you very much.
Yeah. But let me push back. Is it useful, though? Because most of the people in the world are not educated about the social problem model of disabilities.
Yeah.
They still see disability is equal to impairment.
Yeah.
So I think that the social model is useful.
It is useful. It's empowering as well. Mm-hmm. But people are not stupid. They say, hang on a minute. Yes, we disable you. Yes, we need a social model thinking. Now, hang on a minute. Haven't you got MS or spinal cord injury or whatever? Is that not a problem? You and I know, if we were having a beer together, you and I would talk about our bodies and difficulties and annoyances and all that stuff. Because I know many disabled people. And in private, we have those discussions. But I want us to have them in public as well. Mm-hmm. I want us not to just think that disability is just barriers, nothing else. Mm-hmm. Disability is not straightforward. It's not easy for us.
Give me an example.
So, pain. Mm-hmm. So pain is experienced as the greatest symptom of disability. Mm-hmm. So we do not talk about pain. And I remember with a disability activist now passed away, who is an expert, in fact, in Latin America. Mm-hmm. So he was a disability activist, a friend of mine. And we talked about pain, we talked about difficulty, we talked about pressure ulcers, all the rest of it. And then we went on stage, we talked to the people, if you like, and he said, disability is all about barriers. And when we were off stage, I said, hang on a minute. We were talking about all the problems. Disability is not all about barriers. And he said, yeah, I know that, you know that, but I'm not going to tell them that. Now, they're not stupid. They're going to work it out. They're going to say, hang on a minute. We know in our lives that our bodies, our minds can sometimes be problematic. That does not excuse our second-class treatment. It's not the reason.
I got you, but I want them to build ramps.
Yes, you do.
And while they build the ramps and while they build the public transportation systems and while they fix the health services, let's them stay with that while we privately discuss our pain.
That's fine. That's fine. But our pain is difficult, but so is theirs. And I'm trying to connect with people all the time. So I want us to, the world does not divide into disabled people and non-disabled people. That's why I said disability is like a piece of string. So it's what you define it. And therefore, of course we need inclusion. Of course we need to have accessibility and all the rest of it, ramps and so forth. But you also need space where they can talk about their pain, we can talk about our pain, and we can do something about it. Because globally, many countries, you can't even get analgesia. So you may have pain, but because there's a fear of addiction, you cannot get relief for your pain. How awful that is. Not in Chile, not in Argentina, not in Brazil, not in Britain, but many countries, not possible.
It's very true. There's another sophisticated debate, which is the one on euthanasia. The progressive world seems to move forward to policies that allow and regulate euthanasia. But that seems to be problematic for our movement.
I support assisted dying at the end of life only. So if people are going to die anyway because they have cancer or MS or some terminal illness like motor neurone disease, then I think they should have the right to dictate the circumstances of their death. I do not think that we should be giving, as it were, death to people who are just disabled. Because we all know that, for example, people who acquire disability are very miserable at first. And then you see them 6 months later, they've adapted to the wheelchair. They've adapted to blindness. They suddenly are radicalized and they're different.
Yeah, but this progressive movement seems to, when it's poorly done, I think, seems to like underscore a notion that our lives are not deserved to be lived, or that our experiences are so terrible that we might as well kill ourselves.
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. Obviously, life with disability can be very, very good, is very, very good, if we get the society right. However, these folk at the end of life are going to die anyway. They're not going to, it's no difference, they're going to die with or without assisted dying. And so I think because medicine can keep you alive for much longer than ever before, there comes a time when you want to be able to say, I'm ready to die. And that's very difficult. And it's between you and your church and your conscience and your family. And not everybody wants that. But we've had that law in Oregon, in Washington, in many American states. It has not changed in all the time that it's been in process. The Canadian law has changed. The Dutch law, I think, has changed. But not in America, States of America. So we need, I think, legislation like that in Britain, and we're going to have it. Now, disabled people, if you actually ask disabled people, I think probably a majority support it. They certainly have in some surveys. But the disabled people's movement does not support it, apart from a few voices like my own. I think, actually, if you ask people, they're not as negative about the possibility.
What about the abortion debate and disabilities?
Again, I think it's for a woman's right to choose. So I support access to abortion. I know abortion is very sad, it's very hard for many, many women, and their partners as well. However, I think that we now have technologies which can detect impairment in the fetus. And it is, so there's an American anthropologist called Ren Rapp. She said, I think it was her who said, testing woman, testing fetus. This fetus, this technology, no, it's Barbara Rothman, who said this technology makes every woman into a bioethicist. So she's trying to work out for herself how you live. Is this a good life or not a good life? Her and her partner have to work it out. I get letters from people who are trying to work it out. So we must support them in this difficult situation.
Yeah, you've written a lot about bioethics.
Yes.
Yeah, can you run us a little bit on
well, for example, first of all, you're completely correct. We need to value disabled lives. We need to welcome disabled people. We need to say you can have a good life regardless of your impairments. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I think we need to listen to disabled people. But we also need to understand that disabled people are not the only other people in the debate. There are also women who have pregnancies, who have children. They must also have a voice in the debate. And if we listen to people, it's very difficult. And people have a great emotional connection, particularly disabled people. So, for example, we did a report into non-invasive prenatal testing. So, in a lot of the world, people will be able to have a test for their pregnancy without amniocentesis, without chorionic sampling. And so no risk to the fetus at all. They test the blood and they say you're at raised chance of having a child with such and such a situation, mainly Down syndrome. And so at that stage, they can opt for themselves what to do. I support that. I support, but as long as they're listening to us about our lives. They're not concluding, oh, it must be so terrible to be in a wheelchair, or it's so terrible to be short, or so terrible to be deaf, or whatever. But we're saying, no, it's fine. You'll be fine. We will support you. Your family will be fine. But at the end of the day, if they say, fair enough, it's okay for you, I don't want to take that risk for my family, that's their choice within the law.
You have lived it yourself.
Yeah.
You're married, you have...
I have children, I have grandchildren, all of whom are disabled and lead good lives. So, my son is a civil servant. He is a very effective organizer in the civil service. My daughter is a social worker. She has 2 children. Her partner also short like me, like her. The children are also short. And what we're trying to say, it's not some sort of statement suddenly. It's saying, look, people have families. These families are fine. And leave them be. Let them be. Include them. Don't stare at them. Include them.
All families or all people tend to blame their parents.
Yes, they do.
For their problems. Has that happened in your life from a disability angle? I mean, have you lived? Did you live it yourself? Did you ask your father, like, why did you decide to have me, knowing that you would have a...
No, because my father had a restricted growth condition just the same as me. So I had role model. Role models are really important. So when I grew up, he was normal. He was short and normal. So I thought, and he was a doctor. And I thought I could be like him. He said, don't be a doctor. It's really hard work. But I can be an academic, I can be a professor. It's the same status as him. I can be included. I can be different. Yeah, he is very normal, very straightforward doctor. I can be radical, I can be, in the media or whatever, because of that role model. So I think that, yes, children of non-disabled people who are disabled, they may look other ways for a role model. We must be there for them. We must say you are welcome and we will show you how to. So for example, when I was paralyzed, I didn't know how to put a wheelchair into the car. And there was another disabled woman who told me. And she said, you transfer into the front seat and you take the wheels off and you put them in the back and then you shut the door and you transfer to the driver's seat and away you drive. You can drive. That was really empowering for me. It's really important because she lived it. She did it.
And in my world, we quadriplegics,
Yeah.
we call it our quad fathers.
Yes.
So
quad fathers.
yes, my quad father.
That's very good. But it takes somebody, maybe a quad, maybe a para, to explain to you
Exactly.
how to do it, and then you can do it.
Yeah, because my disability is acquired. I was 24 years old when I had an accident. I lived like the first 2 years were more like in mourning. Kind of.
Miserable. Yeah, horrible.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
But then I met other people
Exactly,
with the same disability, and I call him my quad father, Mr.
Brilliant.
Brian Sheridan, who was the person that taught me a lot of practical stuff.
Yeah.
Like you with how do you get your chair in the car.
So somebody today, they said, I want to talk to you. I thought, oh gosh, another person with problems. She didn't want to talk to me. She wanted to take a photograph of my wheelchair.
Exactly.
She thought my wheelchair was very cool. I love that.
I get that a lot, and I love when I'm approached.
I can talk all day.
When I'm approached by another person with a disability, that I can tell them a trick.
I want to look at your wheelchair. I want to see how it moves. That's exciting because we face common problems. We face the same difficulties.
That people without disabilities, and they can be your family, they can't understand it.
No.
So we do have a secret handshake.
Yes, we do. And people who drive motorbikes, they have a secret leg click. We can't click our leg.
Exactly.
But we can go, we side eye. We could call it a side eye. Let's look at your wheelchair. And I see people, they're not looking at me, they're looking at my wheelchair, which is great.
One of the things my quad father talked to me about that doctors wouldn't tell me was about how with my disability I could have a sex life.
Yes.
I know you've written about this. So what do you make of the sexuality of people with disabilities?
Well, for a start, they have one. That's really important. That sex doesn't stop when you become disabled. It doesn't stop when you become old. Sex is a human right. It's part of what makes us human, the intimacy of people connecting with each other, however they do. We did a book in 1996, and we call it The Sexual Politics of Disability. And if you wanted to summarize that, we'd say the problem with disabled sexuality is not how to do it, it's who to do it with. So, for example, we have lots of books or articles about
but the how is also a thing.
Yeah, well, you learn that from other people. But
exactly.
Connecting, having partners, that is the more difficult thing. And it's the same for everybody. It's really difficult to meet people that you are simpatico with, that you're connected to, that suddenly you become partners of a hope. But disabled people also can do that. It might be more difficult, but they can do that. And again, we went out and we talked to people. And we said, tell us about it. And they told us the good, the bad, the ugly. We know that disabled people can suffer abuse and sexual violence. That is part of the ugly. But we also know they can be straight and gay and trans and everything else. And so they should.
Yeah. I think sex is more like a language.
Yes.
That two people
connect.
Invent. Because it's never the same.
For everybody it's different. Yeah.
So you need people to be open about discovering that language.
Yeah, but it's a language which is about intimacy, isn't it? It's about connection. So from Chile, I always remember Pablo Neruda, who is the great poet of connection, of intimacy. I want to do with you what spring does to the cherry trees, is in English translation from the 20 Love Songs and a Song to Spare. It's great. We in Britain still have Pablo Neruda as our inspiration, even though he's from Chile,
Really?
even though he's dead. Yeah, very much so.
Okay, that's good to hear. So you're into art?
Yeah, poetry and plays and films, and because I think that is a frontier which we need to say. Disabled people can do that.
You've written fiction?
Yeah, novels.
Okay.
And novels to make you laugh. Novels that you and I have a character in this series of books from Costa Rica, And he's a gay guy from Costa Rica, and he hates because everybody thinks that Puerto Rico is where you're from. No, I'm from Costa Rica. Because obviously the gringos, they don't understand.
The gringos don't know the difference between San Juan and San Jose.
Exactly. So I have a character from Costa Rica, and why do I have a character from Costa Rica? Because a certain person who is the ambassador of Costa Rica said, make them Costa Rican. That would be very funny. So I did, yeah. She knows who she is.
Okay, so I'm also an artist. I paint.
Great.
Yeah,
good.
I love it, and I think it's a very important aspect of my life. But I struggled, and I kind of tried to make a point that I wanted to paint and to have my art life separate from my disability life.
But you only have one life, so it must be part of everything you do, surely, because you are yourself. You're Juan Pablo. You are. Yeah, it's part of you. So even if you do not explicitly include it, that's fine. You don't have to. You can make art for any reason.
I was very self-conscious because I wanted people to love my art.
Not because it's by a disabled
Not because
person.
it's a disabled person. So I could make it in Instagram.
Yeah.
Because in my account I'm an anonymous artist that posts art.
So you're not judged.
Many people that know me, of course, and my friends and my family, and they like it. But when I get a like from a random artist,
perfect.
That's
Wonderful.
my best day.
Wonderful.
That's my best day.
Liberation. Yeah, I know other disabled artists, and they say, "I am an artist. I'm a painter. I'm a whatever writer, but not a disabled artist," because that seems to pigeonhole you. It seems to say, "Oh, that's very good for a disabled person."
Exactly.
You're not. You're an artist.
Exactly. I want to separate that. But I also finally made peace with it, as you said, because I can't separate.
It's part of you.
It's part of me, and I spoke with a curator.
Yeah.
And the guy told me, well, if you want to make it as an artist, and if this is important for you, if you want to exhibit and sell, you're also selling yourself. You're also selling your story.
Exactly. So I had social media training as a writer, and they said, you're not selling a book, you're selling yourself. And that's ridiculous, but in today's world, that's what is needed.
You did stand-up comedy.
Yes, I did.
How was that experience? And could you separate the comedy from the disability?
I was not a very good stand-up comedian, let's be facing it. And for me, the funny things happen when I talk about my life, when I talk about people's ignorance, when I talk about the obstacles, when I talk about falling out of my chair naked, which was what happened to me. So all of this is funny, I think. And similarly in my book, many of the episodes in my book are mine. So I put them in the book, but they are about me. And that makes people laugh. Now, short people have always made people laugh. Yeah, we've been figures of fun. But I want people to laugh with me, and not at me. Yeah. That's the important thing for me.
Yeah. Have you seen those paintings of short people by Velázquez?
Yes, aren't they wonderful? I love them in the Prado. Wonderful. Because he gives them humanity. So Philip IV, the Habsburgs with their deformity, they're kings, but the short people are people. That's what really encourages me. Yeah,
I think that in the painting, you kind of notice the with and not at points that you were making, no?
Yes.
Like he was painting the characters and making art with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think Velázquez is so interesting, and so those paintings, I love them. And then later we have Goya, who's deaf, who went deaf, which is also very interesting. So I think in the world of art there are many, many interesting ways in which
I would say Goya is a good ambassador for psychosocial disabilities.
Right.
His dark period.
Yeah.
he's expressing, I don't know, his insanity.
But also his isolation. He was a deaf man at that stage, so he didn't connect with people. So I think that if you connect, so it was interesting. A long time ago, there's a guy who was very impaired. He used a letterboard to spell out what he was trying to say. He said, Tom, am the tragedy theory of disability, because he was very impaired. He said, you, Tom, are the comedy theory of disability. I don't have a choice. People laugh, but I want them to laugh with me, not at me.
Okay, that is fantastic. I wanted to ask you about the roots of the movement in Britain, because I think the world of disability owe a lot to the first activists in the UK.
Well, in the UK and also in the US with the independent living movement in the 1970s, was a transformational time. But in England also, disabled people were surviving, that's the first thing, and they were fed up of being treated as second-class citizens. They're fed up of being segregated. They're fed up of travelling in the guard's van of the train and not having the buses accessible also. And they said enough is enough. And that's why they got together in 1970s in many groups, but particularly in UPIAS, but also in the Liberation Network of people with disabilities, and said, we're an oppressed group. You need to change. We don't need to change. You need to change. And they lit a fire, which is global, which is in Brazil and Chile and everywhere, as in Argentina, as well as in Britain and America and Canada and also Uganda and many countries, because it makes sense. It speaks to people.
The independent
living, but also the idea that we are disabled by the barriers we face. Now, we cannot help people with their health issues, but we can remove the barriers.
Can you walk us through the main points of the independent living?
So, I think independent living movement is about making a distinction between your physical dependency, you might not be able to do things to yourself, and your social independence. And if we look at royal families traditionally, they don't do anything for themselves. They don't carry money, they're segregated, they're looked after, they're supported, but they have very, very strong social independence. We had the King of Jordan yesterday, who spoke to us at the summit. Yeah, the opening summit. Traditionally, people who have power, social power, are not physically doing everything for themselves. So why do we demand it of people? Why do we have this notion that people have to be able to walk, or have to be able to cook, or have to be able to drive? No. They need to have people who can help them get about. They need to have people who can prepare their meals for them. Now, the trouble is, in many parts of the world, that is done without any money by women. So we need to change that. And independent living is saying you can be very socially independent while still being physically quite dependent.
We kind of circled back to the social benefits and the policies of benefits, which are expensive. Some models of independent living are about having like a center, like a place
where you get advice from other disabled people about how to live your life.
Okay.
You told me you had a quad father. I had a woman who used a wheelchair to tell me about the wheelchair. And we were both inspired and transformed, both because of what they told us, but also because they told us. They lived it and told us. And therefore, getting together in these centers for independent living is very important.
I had a beef with those centers.
Why?
Because I thought that they were segregated. I thought that why don't people with disabilities meet at the park or at the
well, they should too. They should
mall
as well.
Or whatever.
And I tell you that I have many friends with disabilities, and that's fine. But they're special to me. But I have mostly friends without disability. Because I want to be taken as a writer or as a arts person or as a researcher. I don't need to have disabled people all the time. When I get a plumber, I don't think, oh, I must have a disabled plumber. I want a good plumber.
I want a good plumber.
They may or may not be disabled. That's I'm not prejudiced, but they need to do the job.
So yeah, I finally made peace with the centers. Because I understand that people or even the state need a center to inform about the benefits and help people understand where they can get their health and their education and all of that. So now I'm kind of encouraging those public policies.
Good.
But I did have, you understand my beef?
I understand exactly. We do not want segregated provision. We want the same healthcare, same education. We have the same needs as everybody else. But where did that idea come from? The independent living movement.
Okay. So now in Latin America, we are promoting those kinds of public policies. We're actually funding them in Argentina, in a project we have there. What do you know about, or how do you see the Latin American movement? You tell me you have friends like Minerva.
Yeah. And friends in Chile and friends in Brazil. But I think there are loads of researchers, there are loads of activists. Why haven't they come together? Why is the continent not strong, proud, and why are they not here in that loud voice? Why are they saying, look, it's unacceptable to have not Spanish as a language of this conference? Because if you do not have Spanish or Portuguese, you're excluding people, and we do not want to exclude.
Well, we do have some like organizations of organizations.
Yes.
Yeah, we have RIADIs.
Yeah.
And we try to get together and see what our priorities are as a region and all of that. But one thing is how we see ourselves, and another thing is how we are seen by the world.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. That's why I wanted you to talk a little bit of how you see us as opposed to other regions in the world.
I think that the wonderful thing about Latin America is that you have so many, you're not backward. You're not needing a development in that sense. You're needing, I think, if I may say, inclusion. You need to have disabled people at the table with the president, with the Congress, and saying, look, this is what we must do when we can afford it, and a path of moving towards inclusion. More and more inclusion, please.
That's great. Okay, Tom, and finally, I wanted to ask you about the role of multilateral organizations, specifically development banks. Do you have any advice for us?
I think you need to listen. I think we all need to listen to people, definitely. That's one thing. But also, we need to have evaluations. We need to know this is a good buy. A best buy for people that make a big difference. You're making investments all the time. How do you know what works? So I want you to do research. I want your colleagues in academia to do research and to find out this is a good way of empowering people. This is a good way of changing a terrain or a landscape to be more inclusive. This is a good transport system. We need more like that. But we know they're good because we have research which shows that they make a difference.
You know what I really like when you say we should see other experiences? I really love the London cabs.
Yeah, I bet you do, because they're fully accessible.
100%.
Yeah, great.
Do you know the history of that?
No.
I don't know how they came about either, but I mean, you have a model when 100% of the cabs are accessible, and I'm trying to copy that model or to bring it to Latin America.
I wish you would. But also, cabs for me are more expensive. I do not get a cab. I get a bus, and there's a ramp, and I can get onto my bus.
Yeah, we need all solutions.
So I remember there's a train service to Norwich in England, and I went to the disability assistance people, and I said, I want to take the 11 o'clock train to Norwich. They said, so, take it. I went, but I need you. They said, no, you don't. I went to that train, it had level access boarding, so I wheeled onto it, just like everybody else. I nearly burst into tears because it was an inclusive solution.
It's beautiful. But there's also a sad thing. When you don't need help, it's more like a loneliness kind of thing that I want to say. In Latin America, when you need to get the bus in Argentina, the bus has a ramp, but it's always broken.
It's same in Washington, D.C.
And you need people to get their hands dirty and
pull it out,
and it's all rusted and it's terrible. But you get to enjoy the generosity and the friendliness of the people of Buenos Aires.
Absolutely.
And that has a magic in itself.
It does. Because we do not want to be so independent we're isolated. We do not want to compete with other people. We want to be connected. So I know my neighbors. That's rare.
Exactly.
On the bus in London the other day, 8 people were talking in different languages. It was wonderful. I did not understand. So there's Spanish, there's French, there's African languages, there's Asian languages. Fabulous. That is. But if I needed help, they would help me. I know they would.
That's great. That's great. Tom, where can people find you, get your books?
Well, they can find me at the London School, so they can email me there. They can find my books. I've got a new book coming out called The Ends, because I think it's about climate change. It's a real risk to humanity, so we need to get it right. And they can get the Ha-Ha, which is a bit like P.G. Wodehouse. So I'll finally tell you one tale. I have cousins in Madrid who are Madrileños, so Spanish. It's Castilian people. And they said, oh, we love your new novel. It's just like P.G. Wodehouse. I said, how do you know P.G. Wodehouse? And they said, my father, he was barracked during the Spanish Civil War in a place where the International Brigade had been before, and they left behind P.G. Wodehouse. And he taught himself English reading P.G. Wodehouse.
You're kidding.
So they all love it. So my French friends, they love P.G. Wodehouse. Therefore, they love my book. So if you like a laugh, get the book. The only difference is...
The aha.
The ha-ha. The only difference is the protagonist is in a wheelchair. But we don't care. It doesn't make any difference to him.
Thank you, Tom. This has been fantastic.
Thank you very much. Thank you for involving me.
All right.
Creado por Juan Pablo Salazar e Iñaki Regueiro de Giacomi. Producido por CAF, Banco de Desarrollo de América Latina y el Caribe. Seguinos en nuestras redes, en YouTube como CAF en video, en Spotify y en Apple Podcast como Voces CAF.